Welcome to the UK Producer DJ podcast with me, Camberwell Jack, and today a very special guest, Jonny Cosmonaut. So this is a podcast specifically for DJs. It's my intention to sit down with relevant DJs and ask the questions that I want to know. Look for common threads, analogies, just like actionable steps that I can use to improve as a DJ. You know, stuff that you can pick up is here to help people.
Absolutely. I hope that people gain a lot from this, you know what I mean? Because if there's one thing that I wish I had when I was younger, it was access to mentorship in the industry, as a musician as well as a DJ.
Anything you want to get good at, even if there is no apprenticeship model there, that's the best way to learn it from someone else.
When I was as young as 14 and just doing music at school, there were so many questions that I wanted answers to that I just didn't have people available to give me that expertise available to me, that knowledge base to share. And that's a good thing about podcasts, I think, is that people have that access now. You might have X amount of questions, but there'll be questions that you won't know you want answered, but then they'll get answered. And it's just people can learn stuff way quicker now than they could when I was, a teenager.
Most of the DJs I know, and you can tell me sort of how you got into it, they were hobby DJs. They DJ'd at home or with their friends or whatever. And then maybe they got quite good. And then they said, I'm going to turn this into a profession. I never did that. I always liked the idea of DJing. I never knew any DJs. And I thought that DJs were just either people who did weddings or people who did it on the weekend. I didn't know there was any money in it. I didn't have any equipment. I didn't know what equipment you would even get. I didn't know what a DJ really did. And I worked for a company for 4 years. I just said to myself, I'm going to become a DJ. Yeah, I just said to myself, having no DJ experience at all, I'm going to become a DJ, rather than I was good and then said, maybe I'll turn this into a profession. Well, I lived in Norway and a lot of the guys were deep house DJs, and I got talking to them about it. And then I started finding out that these guys are making 300, 400, up to £1,000 a night DJing. And I was making, 14 or 15 pounds an hour. Growing up, I never knew anyone who was a DJ. I didn't have any friends at school who were DJs. And that just never would have occurred to anyone that I knew, or to me, that they could make money. Not unless you were really famous. Obviously, you would know that Swedish House Mafia were making loads of money.
There's such a big differential between... So all around the world, you've got people who just DJ for fun.
Yeah.
Just do it. We'll play to an audience for nothing, or just get free drinks, or maybe they'll get 20 quid, 30 quid, 40 quid at the end of the night, and they'll be very happy with that. But then they're hobbyists more, but they're still doing a professional job.
Yeah.
Then you've got people who get paid, maybe £100 a night, or somewhere between 50 and 100 quid a night, all over the country and all over the world, in fact. And then you've got people who are making $1 million a night in Vegas, like Calvin Harris every Friday.
But actually, those kind of DJs, though, that we were just talking about, so Tiesto, Steve Aoki, Swedish House Mafia, David Guetta, all of those people were my kind of first intro to DJing or super DJing, that it was actually a big thing.
I know David Guetta, people like to hate on David Guetta because he sort of just turns up, presses play and takes the money.
But does he? Mate, he's legit.
Oh, he's definitely legit. It's almost like he's earned the right to do that because he's put so much groundwork in, and he was producing French house, classic French sound.
Yeah.
A long time ago, making waves. So it's almost people say, he's earned the right because he's put the legwork in. I don't know if I agree with that, because I feel there's complacency and there's laziness. I'm not going to hate on him though, because it kind of doesn't matter how you deliver a product. If the product's being delivered and people are buying drinks and they're paying for tickets and they're turning up, and you just need to be there and be woo, and be the figurehead of it, that's cool. Just press play then, fine. You can at least I'm sure there's been a lot of pre-production effort gone into his sets.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things there. So David Guetta was a DJ, not a producer, for I think about 10 years. He was just a DJ. So he definitely knows how to DJ. He started out as a DJ and it would have been vinyl.
He doesn't need to prove that he can DJ.
Yeah, because he knows he can.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
But I've seen videos online where it's like, I can't remember what it is. Like,
So I've seen on his Instagram, he'll say, I'm preparing a set for Ultra Festival. There's a difference between being a DJ and a producer.
yeah, but if I was asked to do a half-hour or an hour-long slot at a festival,
Yeah.
I would definitely, in that instance, be like inclined to spend, a good day at least prepping a meticulous set and doing cue points and everything and just like doing it. But in my experience as a DJ, doing like several nights a week and doing sets that are usually like 4 hours long at least, and my set tonight's 5 hours long, there's no point in me prepping a 5 hour set.
I am meticulous about the organisation, even if it's just a normal gig, not a festival. I have different playlists. So I would use my like warm-up, what I call warm-up music. I would start with my slow stuff. I've got a lot of like K-Tronada remixes. That's the sort of thing I would start out with. Because also when there's no one there, you don't want to be like hyping them up with drop after drop. So songs are just wasted. So, and actually that's an important point about DJing is like, you have to be able to DJ to the mood or the vibe or the crowd or the venue. Do you know what I mean? So it's funny because people will ask me, oh, what kind of a DJ are you? And I always say to them, well, I play all kinds of music.
People like categories and they like categorise and they like niches. That's the trouble being an open format DJ. It's much harder to market yourself as an open format DJ because people like to be able to like say, oh, if I book this person, I know I'm going to get an hour of tech house, or I know I'm going to get an hour of like two-step and garage, or I know I'm going to get trap and grime, or like just one of those two things. And then you can market yourself as that. I would like to be known as someone that can deliver a really good disco house set, because I'd love to do something like the House of Disco stuff in Brixton. I think it's in Brixton they do it. Or no, they do House of Disco now in Bethnal Green. Late Night Tough Guys doing a set at the Metropolis Strip Club in Bethnal Green on Saturday.
Big up all the strippers.
And it's a cool club, good sound system. There's poles from floor to ceiling. What we're talking about before, open format. So yeah, people want to be able to pigeonhole you. So I would like to do things, but like I will play hip hop, funk, soul, R&B, house, garage. What am I missing there?
Drum and bass, jungle.
So I learnt to DJ with drum and bass.
Yeah.
First time I ever used decks was my mate's house in Guildford. Okay, the first time I ever saw a DJ, there was this DJ in my hometown. I'm from Basingstoke. Big up Basingstoke, massive. Big up the crew there. Near Reading, yeah. And there was this DJ there who was like the local DJ at the ice rink, and I used to go ice skating when I was like 10, 11, 12, every Friday. And there was a disco, and you just go around in circles on ice skates, and the DJ played. But he was always friendly. He'd always shake my hand. And I was just like, oh, this guy's fucking cool. Do you know what I mean? He's like the don. And then I remember like I'd see him, and he would also do. We had these things called snap discos in Basingstoke, just like an anti-drugs underage disco for kids 16 and under to go and just like get off of each other basically.
Right.
And and he DJ'd those. I think he was the first DJ I ever like was aware of.
Yeah.
But then skip forward like 10 years, my mates are running like drum and bass nights in Guildford, and we're going to like raves and stuff. Like,
were they DJs or were promoters or?
They did their own night in Guildford, but they were just like, ravers. Do you know what I mean? They just loved it. But they had decks set up, and that's how I learned the principles of DJing with vinyl. So like, that's how I learned like how a mixer works and attempted to beat match drum and bass. It's quite difficult, like, but it's. DJing with vinyl is generally very difficult. You don't have the same like feedback as you do from a CDJ, which has got a screen on it, which shows the waveform and does all this stuff for you. All you've got is your ears and your knowledge of the music.
I don't know why people even like DJing on vinyl now when there are other options. Because there's loads of cons to DJing on vinyl. One, you've got to carry it around with you. Not only is it like a hassle to actually carry it and it's heavy, that really like reduces the amount of songs you could have. How many can you carry?
I think you can carry about 50 records in a bag. You got 2 bags, about 100 records. I've seen DJs carry more than that.
Actually, that's quite a lot.
It's backbreaking.
Also, you have to mix a lot slower because you've actually got to like take it out, put it on.
You also have to mix a certain way, and that's why scratch DJing is so impressive, because that is finding that first beat and being able to like and like setting the tempos to match, and then just like and straight in, and that's why that crossfader switch is good. But if you can do that as well as mix, that's like next level stuff. But I've got so much respect for DJs that do that, especially like, you know, like New York style.
I'm a big fan of scratch DJs.
Because I can do basic scratching, but I'd like to do like a workshop where I learn to do like different scratch techniques and stuff. Big respect for anyone that DJs with vinyl. It's an art. It's a real art. But I don't like the fact that people are purists and like turn their nose up at anything that isn't vinyl, because it's like people just going to do what they're going to do. So anyway, so I learned with vinyl when I was about 18. Didn't DJ again because that was just my mate set up in their flat or whatever.
When they were teaching you, how long were you spending?
I was just watching my mate Luke do it. The reason I knew him is because we were both in like emo bands when we were teenagers and stuff. So that's how we knew each other. And he was, you know, he had a musical ear and he was a musician, so he had a sense of rhythm and a sense of performance. So he really nailed like the whole double drop concept. Double drop meaning when you get two tunes to drop at the same time. You're setting the cue point so that they'll both build at the same time and then the drops at the same time.
You don't swap the drop, they drop over each other.
Either you switch it out and it drops, or you drop them together if the tunes work together. Do you know what I mean? So he did that. He did a lot of that. One of his recorded sets, he mixed this tune by Marvin Gaye, which is called Wonderful One.
Right.
And he mixed it into this, like, I think it was like a high contrast tune. It was like a swung drum and bass tune. It was like... And he absolutely nailed it. And I was just like so impressed with it. And that was doing that on vinyl. Do you know what I mean? It was like proper impressive stuff. So watching him was my first like lesson in DJing. Yeah. And then I'd have a go, and I would sort of like, I can try and work out where you need to adjust the tempo control on my... He was using like 1210s or whatever.
There's techniques, which are very expensive.
Very expensive now. And then I didn't DJ again until I was asked to DJ for a friend's like gig night, and that was just a case of like making up CDs, you know, like where you put MP3s on a CD. Yeah. And use CDJs, but I wasn't really mixing. I was just...
More like a playlist.
Playlisting, yeah, but like, you know, just being the guy that curates some songs for a gig, and that was more like sort of like indie, like rock and folk music and stuff, because it was that kind of gig. I did that like once or twice.
But hang on a second, let's just go back. When they were teaching you, were they like actually kind of trying to give you lessons, or you were just...
It was more like I just watched and then learnt from examples.
And was it on like a regular basis where you like, every Friday we're gonna...
That was probably just like a few times, like as in like...
And then you went out and actually played somewhere after that?
Well, that was a way for me to understand how a mixer worked.
Yeah.
And understand the principles of beat matching.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a few goes doing that. We'd go back and the decks would be set up and they'd spin some tunes, and then you'd get an opportunity to give it a go yourself. Pick some like drum and bass records and try and mix, and probably do an absolutely terrible job of it. But, you know, still it's like... It's a good way to learn how good you are at mixing. Do you know what I mean?
For anyone who doesn't know what beat matching is, by the way, if you're bringing in a new song, to mix it in, obviously you need to have a transition, but you need the songs to be at exactly the same speed, tempo, to be able to do that. So the beat matching is where you'll have the cue button pressed so that you get the sound in your headphones. You'll be listening to one, so the song that's currently playing, which will be on like a booth monitor or just on the speakers. Then you're listening to the one that you want to bring in, and what you're doing is you're matching the speed so that they can play at the same time and in sync.
It's funny because I wonder how many people in the world just assume that when a DJ's like got his ear to the thing, one ear on, one ear off, and they're like doing that and they're like doing that. People probably don't realise that that's what's going on.
Well, mate, most people don't know anything about DJing. If it's someone who's making a lot of money, say these guys that are making $250,000 a night in Las Vegas, they're going, what, for pressing a button? Obviously, well, it can't be for pressing a button because they wouldn't get paid that much. That's the equivalent of saying, you know, a footballer is getting paid $100,000 a week. What, just for kicking a ball?
Yeah.
Which is obviously ridiculous. And the other thing that people don't realise is not only are they wrong about what they're doing when they're there, they don't realise what you have to do to get there. And all the preparation. Like, I spend hours, and I mean hours, listening to new music to have in my sets. If a song is on average 5 minutes long. Yeah.
Times a lot of investment.
Yeah, if I've got to listen to 10 songs, that's 50 minutes. We're talking about an hour only to listen to them as well. And then people say to me, well, why don't you just quickly skip through it and then you don't have to listen to the whole song? Well, you will need to listen to the whole song before you play it out. So yeah, I do. I go through and I quickly listen. I skip through. Do I like this? Do I not? But at some point, I do need to listen to it the whole way through because one, I'm gonna analyze the speed. I'm gonna set the cue points. And some songs, they change. You need to know the structure of it.
I don't always get the opportunity to do that. I buy new music every week, and I might just hear a bit of something and Shazam it and be like, I've decided I like this, I'm going to buy it. And I'll be like, oh, there's that tune, I'm going to like, and then I won't have the opportunity to listen to the whole thing. And then sometimes I trip up where like all of a sudden the song ends and then there's a complete like BPM change, or like it just goes into some like spoken word shit, and I'm like, oh, just quickly like reverb that one out and drop another one. Do you know what I mean? Like it's yeah.
To be fair, when you're playing live, it's a lot easier to recover from mistakes because people move on. You're on the next song, they just like continue.
As a DJ, I've usually always got my next tune queued as soon as I've dropped one track. Yeah. Straight away I'm deciding. It's like being a bomb disposal expert. Do you know what I mean? Right. It's like as soon as you press play on that tune, the minutes are counting down to when you've got to how long you've got, if not less than that. Yeah. To mix another tune and make it work.
Yeah, because also you want to listen to the new tune coming in because, right, even if you beat match it and they're at the same speed, that doesn't mean it's actually going to work. Do you know what I mean? So you need to play it over. And
for me, I hit play, the clock's ticking, I'm picking another song straight away. So then if I get the opportunity to let that song play out, I'm ready to go straight away to the next one. Like it's just there, but I have to do that because I improvise my sets. I don't prep them, and I just select from however many tens of thousands of songs I've got. Sometimes I know. Sometimes when I'm in the right mood, I'll hear a song and it'll just come to me, and I'll be like, oh, that song, yeah, this will mix really. Which is also why I love B2B, which means back to back when you're DJing with someone else
or bareback. Actually, you're barebacking it because you're not prepared. You're just hoping that they will work.
So that's why I love back-to-back, because if we were going to do a set right now, I'll play a tune and then you'll play a tune, and your selection will really inspire me because I'll be like, oh, they're playing this. And then my brain just works in a way where I'm like, oh, this song will go great into that. Something I learned actually not that long ago, there was a documentary by, it was Jazzy B, who's from Soul to Soul.
Right.
Like an old school dance act from the early 90s. They'd throw massive parties in London and stuff. But he did I think it was a BBC show called Jazzy B's From Dole to Soul, talking about his life, how he came from Notting Hill, when Notting Hill was quite a poor area, right, to having Soul to Soul and having a record shop in Camden and being the figurehead of this new rave scene. And it was only through that I learned the old school dub reggae sound systems. And also, just the old school model of dub reggae sound systems was that you'd have a selector, a DJ and an MC.
Yeah.
The DJ wasn't selecting the tunes. The DJ was just spinning them. The selector was the one who was in control of what was being played. They're the one whose brain was working. So it was DJing used to be a two-man job essentially.
So the selector did what is known for DJs as reading the crowd.
The selector is the selector and the DJ, the disc jockey is the disc jockey, and the two were very interdependent. They relied on each other because the DJ is just the one that's doing the technical side of things and being a technical wizard. The selector's the one that's using their mind to read the crowd, and it was just a two-man job, and I think that's fascinating.
I think that the most important element of DJing or being a successful DJ is your song selection. Of course, you need to have the skills to DJ, but once you've mastered the skills, you can beat match. You know how to transition. You know how the equipment works. For me, the differentiator between a good DJ or a bad DJ is your song selection. Most people in the crowd, unless they have been a DJ themselves, they don't actually know what you're doing. So they're not going to go, oh, mate, that was a really sick transition. Do you know what I mean?
It is ultimately the most important thing. There's also, there are situations where it's not the most important thing. For example, when...
If you're in a scratching contest, like a DMC, then it wouldn't be, but...
No, I mean, if you're just in your average, Friday night club full of, drunk people, and you know what they want to hear, and it's not going to be your selection of, deep cuts. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be your expertly curated selection of, obscure vinyl-only techno. It's going to be, Drake, Rihanna, and Beyonce.
that is still part of the same thing though. If song selection is important, that's still part of it, because what you're doing is you're selecting what they will react to.
Selection matters less to that kind of audience than playing the hits.
I think what you're talking about is a different thing, which is, as a DJ, you should be the person to educate or introduce people to new music.
Yeah.
But that's a slightly different thing.
It's still a matter of selection, but yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
I like DJing when I play music that is not in, like what you said, the top 40 or whatever, where you do introduce people.
I play music people no one's ever heard of, and that's like one of my favourite things to do, because as a DJ, especially someone who's doing long sets, I don't want to give people the run-of-the-mill what they expect of me. I want to play something maybe they don't expect to hear, and also something they like. I love seeing people with Shazam. I love seeing that blue light.
Yeah.
I love seeing people like digging a tune and then holding their phone up to the speaker bag. And in that regard, I see myself as like a link in the chain of the music industry, because it's like I'm a conduit for music that otherwise wouldn't reach someone's sphere getting there. I'm that bridge between artist and consumer. And I'm a consumer myself. I buy all my music. Last time I downloaded something for free was ages ago. I tend to buy it all. That's only because I've sort of got a bit tired of the process of scouring SoundCloud, although it is something I want to go back to, because there's some of the best tunes I've heard, like edits and stuff, come through like free download of SoundCloud. SoundCloud's a great resource. But you were saying something about SoundCloud now being like able to link it as a DJ or something like that, you were saying?
Yeah, so basically the new Record Box update, they've now incorporated, and actually Tractor as well, they've incorporated like streaming services into it.
This is something that I always thought would happen, because ultimately like having a digital copy of a track, which is how I operate, everything on my USB is mine.
Well, I'm not a fan of this streaming. I'll tell you why.
Go on.
Like you said, I also DJ with just the USB. So I have a digital file. What that allows me to do, the way I organize it, so on my USB, I've got different folders. I've got like drum and bass, I've got Afro beats, I've got garage, house, deep house, disco house, tech house, etc. That's just on the USB. Then I go into Record Box and I make playlists inside of Record Box. I'll set them by those genres.
Yeah.
I'll also set them by like mood or venue. So I've got a playlist that's like Ibiza poolside, which is mainly like new disco and house. Kind of music that you'd play in like a day party. I set it by speed, 90 BPM to 100 BPM. Then I've got a folder 100 BPM. Because sometimes you want to keep it the same genre, but sometimes you want to play different genres. So having them in playlists by speed, I've got like a Bonobo track, Jules, which I think is about 130 beats per minute, and that could mix over garage, although his song is what I would call like ambient. It's like ambient atmospheric kind of music, but you could play that over garage, not in the same genre but same speed. If you go on the streaming services, you're not going to be able to organise like that, because you won't own the file.
Yeah, it helps to be organised, and it's like you can't just let it do it for you.
Actually, how do you organise your music?
I'll organise a playlist for a specific night if I think it's worth doing.
Yeah.
Or an event. So for example, I did an event recently that was like, I needed to play a lot of Latin music. And I didn't really have a lot of Latin music, so I bought a lot of Latin music.
Yeah.
So that all went on one playlist for that event.
But it's not actually within the USB, it's not in a folder.
Through Record Box, it's in a playlist folder. So it's like, I make the playlist on iTunes.
I organise it twice, is what I'm saying. So I actually have folders on my USB. So if I didn't have access to Record Box or whatever, it's organised in folders by genre. And then when I go into Record Box, I have playlist folders. They're like more detailed.
You're a much more organised person than I am.
So I rename them all. I write the speed on them.
Yeah, cool. I respect that.
It's ages.
Exactly. It's like time consuming, but it's not how I roll, but I respect you for it.
So I wasn't always that organised with it. And actually when I first started DJing, I didn't create these folders. It's only probably been like the last year that I said to myself, I need to create a folder. To me, it's all about like foundation. I'm doing something now that my future self, will be grateful for, because the organisation, what that allows me to do is, as I progress, I want to be a big artist DJ like David Guetta or Calvin Harris, Diplo. Those guys are not going to have the time, do you know what I mean, to sit down and go through it. So I feel like I'm doing all this stuff now so that, mate, in the future, I am never ever going to have a situation where I have writer's block or DJ block where I can't find a song, because I've done it all now.
So again, everything I Shazam, I Shazam it because I like it and I'll buy it.
Do you know what I do? I Shazam them Then I go onto Instagram, put the photo up as if I was doing a story. Then I click on the text and I write a note on it. And then I save them on my phone in a folder. A folder on my phone is called Songs. And it's all screenshots with notes. And then I go back through them and I'll have written a note on it and it will be like grime or this or that, so that then I know.
That's so organised, man. So I'll just Shazam a track and then I'll buy it, and I may never play it live. And then I also buy tracks, not realising I've bought them twice before already. So I've got like triple copies of some.
And if you had organised folders, that wouldn't happen.
Probably still happen. It's just not how I do it. It's just not my style.
Yeah. But going back to the point I was making about knowing your music, because I feel like I can't possibly know 2,000 songs. What the organisation does is allow me to problem solve. When I look through a list and it's just got names, I don't know what that song is. I don't know if that's drum and bass, if that's house. And because we're both doing multi-genre DJing, the organisation is even more important, because I'll go through and I'll know, well, it's in the drum and bass folder. So at least it's drum and bass. And then I can quickly listen to it in the headphones.
Certainly your method is the right way to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like you're making your job easier. I make it harder for myself.
The problem that you've come into is that you didn't do it early enough. And now for you to go back and actually organise it all, that is just too much of a monumental task, which I would understand. What I did was, while I was still quite new at DJing, that's when I decided to go through and organise everything. And I organised all the songs I had. It might have been about 300. And then since then, now I do it every time. So it's like getting that initial organisation is really time consuming. And actually it still kind of is time consuming. But now I've already got the folders there. So every time I get a new song, I'll push it into my folders. And I've got a folder on my laptop, and it's called Add to DJ USBs, and that's got the same folders names in there. When I do analyze and go through music, I don't want to do one or two at a time, so I will fill those up, and then I'll sit down and I'll make a day where I go through and I start putting them actually onto my USB, and then they'll go into the folders, and then I can like relax a bit until I get more fucking songs and have to keep going through the process. So we know that you don't organise your music, and I do.
But I do, just not to the same degree that you do.
To be fair, I'm not an active DJ, and you are, and you're DJing, was it 5 nights a week? So I can see how you wouldn't.
It's a busy, 5 sets in a week is a busy week for me.
DJing is a full-time job. I think that's also like a common misconception, because again, going back to what we were saying earlier about people think you just press and play, and I was saying they don't realise the preparation and everything that leads up to it. They don't realise that...
Like, I'm always listening for new music. Someone's trying to have a conversation with me and I'm like, yeah, sorry, what? Sorry, I was just checking this tune out, or I'm on Shazam. I'm like...
That's me in a club. I'm on Shazam. Or if I'm at home, I'm watching sets on Boiler Room. The comments looking for, like, tracks.
I don't do enough of that, but, like, I tell you what, when I did get into watching Boiler Room sets, there were some tracks I heard by DJs I admire and respect. I was like, oh yeah, I'd spin this for sure.
That's actually something I've struggled with a lot as a DJ. Is there's such an abundance of music out there and ways to get it, so you can overwhelm yourself of where do I even start with getting music.
Like, I've got a lot of respect for the heavy crate diggers, you know, the people who really like dig deep that you would otherwise not hear. Bless those people. I've got so much love and respect for those people. That's not me. But I love and respect them for doing that. The kind of DJs where they'll show up and do a vinyl set somewhere and nothing's coming up on Shazam.
You have to get in the comments, mate. That's what I do. I'm always in the comments. And actually, I also, if I hear songs that I recognise, I will write it in the comments for the benefit of other people. We can't spend all of our time trying to find new music. People do get upset about the, like, stealing my set. But it's like, why not benefit from the fact that someone else has found that song, and watching other people says is a good way to hear it. But then there's the other element of, once you've heard it, where do you get your music from? I've got quite a few different sources of where I get music from.
The relationship with Spotify as a tool, but there was a feedback, do you know what I mean? Like, what you listen to, and then what you like make, what you then put into playlists, what you like, it just learnt that. I think recently I've thrown the algorithm off a bit, but I'll listen to something and then you can set it on Spotify whereby it will carry on playing. Once you finish listening to like a record, it will just carry on playing more similar music based off what you were listening to. You just let it run with it. Yeah. And that's a good way to discover it. Sometimes I'm even hearing a song and I remember, I'll be like, oh, this is a good song. I know I don't have this. Yeah. But it's a song I know. So that'll go in my playlist. So every week I make a playlist on Spotify called By and then a number. And I'm up to like by 54 now of music that I will at some point, usually at the end of the week, before the weekend comes, go on Beatport, iTunes, anywhere between 10 and 30 tracks to buy every week.
And then how do you actually go about getting the file?
I used to use Juno Download quite a bit, and I use Beatport as well. Some of the records that I spin, you can only buy on services like Beatport and Juno. You can't buy them on iTunes because they're like DJ edits and stuff.
Yeah.
On occasion, I will buy a record because you can't even get it digital copy, and I'll record it but I've paid for the vinyl to then use it.